Today's episode is sponsored by Butler County Chamber of Commerce, Sprinkles Neighborhood Market, Robert Stevens Custom Jewelers, R.W. McDonald & Sons Incorporated. Thank you to our sponsors for supporting Eye on Sports.
Welcome to Alter Eagle's Eye on Sports podcast. I am Butler Eagle Sports writer Derek Pida, and to my left is Eagle Sports writer Brendan Howe, and joining us this week is former Butler Eagle Sports editor John Enrietto. John led the sports department.
All right.
John led the sports department here for nearly 27 years. His last day before retirement was June 28th. John, we appreciate you joining us. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Derek. It's like I said before we started this, it feels like old times. The three of us were doing this last year, so it feels weird to be back down here again.
It's like riding a bike, right?
Yeah. There you go. Yes, it is.
Welcome back, old man.
John, you obviously have
young whippersnapper.
You obviously have a lot more free time now that you're retired, and why don't you let us know how retirement has been treating you?
Well, I wish I could say it's been better than it's been. Simply being, I was retired for 6 days and threw my back out playing golf. So that sidelined me with my back for maybe a month. Then I was diagnosed with lymphoma, obviously a form of cancer. It's not a serious form, but a form that needs treated nonetheless. So I've been going through treatments and biopsies and bone marrow examinations and all that kind of stuff, but medications. But now I have the medication that I need. Just came yesterday, so hopefully this will begin going through the tunnel that'll ride me out of that. But besides that, I feel fine.
So, John, you've been covering high school football for us this season. You haven't just been sitting home doing nothing, you know. So, with the games that you've gone to and what you've read in the Butler Eagle, what are your thoughts on football in Butler County this season?
Been some crazy games already. I mean, I did the Coin City DuBois game last Friday of 46-43. I think it was 36-33 at halftime. And I remember texting Jake, here's a weird halftime score for you. You might want to keep track of this one. And he thanked me for sending him that text. I think, Butler was off to a decent start. They ran into a team at Holdaysburg last week that, Butler got shut out 24-0, but that was Holdaysburg's third straight shutout. So obviously they have a great defense. Everyone knows, and I'm sure I see on the agenda here, we'll be talking about this a little bit later, so I won't dwell on this now, but the Moniteau football situation's gotten a bit bizarre. So season's off to a strange start for sure.
Yeah, and with that, I kind of wanted to mention I covered Alquip and Mars the other night, and I told you guys since last year that most of the games I've covered, except for one, have been decided by 19 points or more. At one point in the fourth quarter on Friday, 19 points separated Mars and Alquip. I was like, I'm just being teased now, and the football gods hate me. You kind of started that out there, John. So it ended up being more than 19 points. But being that you're not in here every day and life is kind of different for you than it's been the last 25 years or so, what do you miss most about being sports editor?
Just the camaraderie of the newsroom.
Being around guys like us, honestly.
Well, kind of, yeah. I mean, just being in the sports office every day, joking around with some of the news reporters, the news desk. I love sitting at my desk, or I'd love sitting at my desk and an unexpected story would roll in, or somebody would send an email in about a potential story, and it looked really neat to me, so I'd jump on it. I miss it, doing that sort of stuff. So that's probably what I miss the most, even more so than covering games, which, as you guys mentioned, I'm still doing that a little bit. But I just miss the atmosphere and the feeling of being part of a newsroom. There's nothing like that for me.
I'm guessing the time that you went from retiring to covering a game was probably the longest you've gone without writing in however long, right? So were you a little rusty getting back there? Like, was there any challenge of covering that first game after being off for a few months?
Honestly, no. It really is like riding a bike when you've done it that long. But I didn't write for maybe a couple months maybe, and I did do a couple stories for Newside during the summer, so it's not like I never wrote. But no, it comes back to you pretty quick. I mean, maybe I'm not quite as fast as I was when I was doing it all the time, but no, to answer your question, no, it really didn't bother me that much getting back into it.
John, you covered many high school events while sports editor here, but you also put a lot of time and effort into stories concerning sports that most people would consider to be not mainstream.
Right.
Which of those stick out for you? I know you interviewed a lot of people over the years, did a lot of stories. What stories stick out for you outside of the mainstream sport?
There's a lot of people doing some crazy stuff out there. I mean, there really is. But the one that's when I looked at that question, Derek, the thing that came to mind right away is bocce. Don Bonifesti, I know you know that name. Passed away a number of years ago, but this man was so into bocce. He formed a league in Butler, and he was so into bocce that him and his neighbors got the city to rename their street Bocce Drive. That's how into it they were. They're super serious about the game. I mean, they invited me to a couple of bocce picnics that I attended. I remember those. And you don't even think about it, joke around they have fun, don't get me wrong. But when that game is going on, they are dead serious about the game. I mean, you don't joke about the game, not to these guys. And the funniest point about it was, I just described to them what my family plays. It's called hardcore bocce, where you can throw the little bowling, the little white ball, the bocce bowling. You can throw it like anywhere, as long as it doesn't hit pavement, it's in play. You can throw it into a bush. You can throw it into a little patch of grass that's surrounded by concrete. You can throw it into the next yard. Wherever. And Tom loved that idea. So we played. I remember we played a round of hardcore bocce at his house, and he's got a swimming pool in his backyard. So he took the bowling and he plopped it right into that pool. The pool was filled with water. The bowling sank to the bottom. And I told you, Tom, you sure you want to do this? And he goes, it's hardcore, right? Yeah, but I don't want to damage your pool. Gets damaged. Come on, let's play. So we're lobbing these bocce balls into his pool. Big splashes are coming up, and then you'd have to get up and take a look and see who's closed. It was bizarre, but they loved the hardcore bocce. So to answer your question, yeah, bocce would be number one there.
So I've heard the story when I wrote the few stories on you when you left. Can you describe to us how you came to want to be a sports writer?
Oh yeah, I wanted to be a sports writer. My gosh, since 8th grade. Going to a game at Forbes Field. I know my age is showing there, but my dad took me to a game at Forbes Field. Took me and my brothers to a game at Forbes Field, and we were sitting in the left field bleachers. And I noticed back then they really didn't have much of a press box. They had the writers were set up behind the plate about halfway up. They had the old-fashioned typewriters, and they'd like clicking away. And I asked my father, "What are these? What's up with those guys? What are those guys doing?" "Oh, they're covering the game. They're writing about the game." I said, "That's pretty good seats. What do you have to pay to get those?" They said, "Well, that's their job. They're being paid to do this." And I said right then, "That's what I want to do." So honestly, since the 8th grade, and obviously you don't know if it's going to happen or not. You're what? I was 13 years old, but I was fortunate enough to get into the business and stay in it. And I tell people all the time, God knew what to do with me in terms of career. That's all I ever wanted to do, and I'm very grateful for the time that I had in it.
Well, I believed I'd be an NFL wide receiver until I was 17. So
I think he still has hopes of getting a tryout with somebody.
Well, I think he believed he'd be an NFL receiver until somebody threw him a pass for the first time.
What are you talking about? I'm still waiting for someone to throw me a pass.
Well, there's a reason for that.
This is the banter I miss.
There you go.
John, when you arrived in Butler in 1997, Butler was new. It was uncharted territory. So
for me, yeah.
I wasn't alive.
Uncharted territory for you and your wife. And you guys...
That was a joyous time there, Brendan. It was joyous.
After you and Darlene have spent nearly 3 decades as residents of the city, what are your thoughts on the people you've met and the relationships you've formed through your work here?
Well, I've loved it here. I mean, the coaches... When you come to a new, at least this is how I've always felt. When you come to a new town in this business, the first thing you have to do is establish trust with all the coaches in the area. You've got to develop trust that you're not gonna hurt their athletes in any way. You're not gonna write badly about their athletes. You recognize high school sports for what they are. An extracurricular activity. And it didn't take me long to get that through to coaches. And I had cooperation like you wouldn't believe from every coach I worked with here. And I'm not exaggerating. I can't even think of one that didn't really work with me. I mean, so the coaches were great. The people, you get to know the people, because I did a lot of Butler football, a lot of Butler basketball. So you go to the same games all the time. You get to know some of the fans as well, because they see you and they know why you're there, and they'll come up to you and ask, hey, what do you think of the first half? What do you think of that play? And so you talk with them, and it's almost like you become part of it. You're like part of the neighborhood, and that was pretty cool for me.
Our first discussion topic today is concerning Moniteau football. As John alluded to earlier, the Warriors had to forfeit their game against Central Clarion last Friday. Head coach Bob Rotman told YDL Sports Network last week that half of his team's 33-man roster would have been unable to play, including all 5 starters on the offensive line. Now, as of today, Tuesday, the Warriors are planning to make the trip to play St. Mary's this Friday. Brendan, what are your thoughts on Moniteau's situation and what this means for the program moving forward?
Well, my first thought in seeing that was we all chose against them last week in playing Central Clarion. They were very different scores in terms of the gap between them. If they would have ended up playing that game, it's a possibility that would have been just a disaster in terms of what the final score would have been. So I think it's a good thing that they were cognizant enough to kind of call that off. And the second thing I thought was they have seniors on that team, and you wait your entire childhood, teenage years to be a senior football player, and your games are being canceled. So that's sad in itself. But looking back, since 2020, that team is 6-34. I went out there last year, not this year, but last year, for my football preview, and I thought that their team was a junior high team because of the numbers of the kids that they had. So with the program and how it goes from here, something that comes to mind is we have Union AC Valley in our coverage area, and I'm not sure. These are bigger schools than those, but maybe at some point these schools, they might have to combine with Karn City, if that is a possibility.
Karn City, Moniteau combining for
Man,
a
I just cannot see that. I just can't. I'll tell you, you look at Moniteau's situation, and what comes to mind for me is, number one, it's a catch-22 that, as Brendan mentioned, 6-34 in these last few years. They're not winning, so there's no interest in the program. Kids don't want to play. They don't want to come out. And the kids that do come out, that they're not, it's pretty clear to me they're not pounding the weight room. They're just not, which is disappointing. It should be disappointing to the administration and coaching staff at Moniteau, because they took the trouble. They built you guys have probably seen it. They got a beautiful weight room in there now. I mean, their new weight room is fabulous. Built it maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. It is tremendous. Now it's well used for other sports, but for some reason in football, they take the field. They get knocked around. I mean, they're not physically strong enough. Other teams are in the weight room year round. Moniteau comes into practice, in August 5th or 12th, whatever the day they start. They thought, we'll just pick up in the weight room. It's too late then. You're not going to build up anything within the span of a couple of weeks, before you play. So that's what bothers me about the Moniteau football program. So somehow you've got to get the numbers up, and that's a challenge because, like I said, they're not winning, and all the injuries that they've gone through. Probably a good part of that is again the no weight room work. I mean, they're not physically strong. When you're not as physically strong as the teams you're playing, is a greater tendency to get hurt, and I'm sure that's a big factor at Moniteau.
I covered Moniteau back in 2018. The reason I bring this season up is that year they only had 28 players on their roster, and yet they reached the District 9 Class 2A semifinals and gave Ridgeway all it could handle before losing 15-7. But that year's roster was actually smaller than this year's, but obviously, the talent level I think was different 6 years ago, and obviously Moniteau didn't run into the rash of injuries that year that they are encountering this year. But I do want to point this out regarding this past Friday's game. Moniteau and Central Clarion are both Class 2A programs. But Central Clarion, as you know, they've got kids on that team from 3 different schools.
They do.
Clarion area, Clarion Limestone, North Clarion. And according to MaxPreps.com, Central Clarion has 52 players on its roster this season. And Moniteau would have taken the field last week had they played with 16 or 17 players. I mean, you talk about being outmanned. I mean, that's a tough road to hoe.
Yeah, plus I'm not sure what North Clarion's recent football results have been, but Clarion Limestone and Clarion by themselves were winning programs. And now you combine them, and the team gets that much stronger.
Yep. So we wish Moniteau well. I mean, they've had a football program up there since 1957. Obviously, having to forfeit a game is not a good sign, but hopefully they find some success soon.
Yeah.
And, obviously the success, just like at Butler, I think if you start winning some games or even if you're competitive, it might entice some kids in the future to come out for the program. So we wish Bob Rutman and that program all the best.
Yeah, we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. Like, if this turns out to be the only game they forfeit, they play the rest of them, even if they lose, if they go out and physically play the games, the program will probably be okay. I mean, by that I mean it's not going to be in danger of being consolidated and swept up by another school. But if they have to end up forfeiting a couple more games, then you have to seriously look at that.
Hey, be sure you stick around because we're only getting warmed up.
Welcome to Beyond Butler, the weekly part of the podcast where we talk about something outside of Butler County in sports, whether that be collegiately or professionally. We're going to stick with football this week. I know we talked about the Steelers last week, but this kind of revolves around the Steelers and the low-scoring games we've seen the past 2 weeks. And also, it seems like quarterback play has been down in the NFL in terms of the quality of it, the yardage that these quarterbacks pass for. And I think I saw a stat on Twitter yesterday that the touchdown passes in the NFL through 2 weeks are the lowest in the past 6 years at this point. So I just want to get Derek and John's opinions on why is the game changing this way, where it's becoming more of a low-scoring game and not the numbers that we see put up like fireworks in the past.
Well, one thing, Brendan, you mentioned touchdown passes are down for the first 2 weeks committed. I can give you some exact figures there because I was watching the game on Monday night last night, and they brought this up. Last year, there were 86 touchdown passes in the league through the first 2 weeks. The 5 seasons before that, each other's 5 seasons were well over 100. Then this season is 66. That's it. And my reason for it is it's sloppy. It's sloppy football throughout the league for the first 2 weeks because this is actually what we're seeing right now is actually preseason games for the veteran players because no veterans or very few veterans even take a snap in the preseason anymore. They come out. I mean, for instance, you saw Kirk Cousins against the Steelers last week. Extremely rusty. Didn't look like Kirk Cousins at all. Last night he played pretty well because you got a game under his belt. And I think you're going to see these numbers pick up as the season go on, but it's sloppy football early. It's been that way for a while, and I really believe that the reason is teams have gotten away from letting their veterans tune up during the actual preseason, and it's costing teams early season games.
I am probably in the minority when I say this, but obviously I want Justin Fields to play well. Whoever's quarterbacking for the Steelers, I want that quarterback to play well. I'm a huge Steeler fan, but in terms of the games being lower scoring in general, I actually like that. I like the fact that when you sit down to watch a game, you could sit down to watch a 17-14 game. You could also watch a game that's 44-41. There's variety to it. A few years ago, it just seemed like 75% of the games were just up and down the field where the defenses were just trying to hang on, trying to make a play, in the red zone to keep a team from scoring. I like the variety. I like the fact that there's going to be high-scoring games in the NFL this year. But I like the fact that there's also a chance that there can be a low-scoring game. I like the variety, and I like the fact that even great quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes, I saw his numbers the other day against Cincinnati at halftime. I think he had like 106 yards passing at halftime, which obviously for him's down. But I like the fact that even the great quarterbacks can have off days.
I like the dramatics that come with low-scoring games.
I don't like certain quarterbacks being able to go out every single week and put up video game numbers. Because now when you see a guy throw for 375 yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns, it means a little more knowing that it's not a given. And it just 8, 9, 10 years ago, it just seemed like the great quarterbacks would always have great games. And that wasn't the case, but it just seemed that way. And I like the fact that there's a little bit of doubt, even with the great quarterbacks, how well they're going to play on a given day.
And this might be me trying to talk myself into things, but I think an offense like the Steelers where they run the ball and they're focused on running the ball and passing is kind of like a third down thing or something that they just pull out every now and then. If you're going to be Patrick Mahomes, who's made 6 straight AFC championship games, you got to keep the ball out of his hands. So there's a saying that everything is cyclical in sports, like especially in football, where if it becomes more of a passing game, teams start to run, then the run becomes pass. So I think that might be part of it too. But like Derek said, I don't mind low-scoring games. Like I'm the type of guy that can go to a Pirates game and see it 0-0 in the 7th inning, and it's more fun that way. Like that one play is going to decide it all, and something special is ahead. So
this has also always been the case. There's never been a time when there's been a lull in the caliber of defensive coordinators, but I think we do got to throw some love to. There's a lot of really good defensive coordinators out there, and obviously a lot of talent on defense. I mean, every year, guys, even though so much of the emphasis is put on offense and, the quarterbacks and the wide receivers, there's a lot of really good defensive guys coming into the league every year. And when you stick great talent on a team that has a great and innovative defensive coordinator, sometimes the defense is able to hit back, and I like that. I don't want the game to be all offense unless the Steelers are putting up the numbers.
Well, if you don't want to see games all offense, then follow the Steelers, because I think you're going to get, for the Steelers to have a winning season, you're going to get what they've been giving you so far. These types of games, this offense for Pittsburgh, not the type. They're not going to put up 30 points. They're just not going to.
I sure hope they make some steps forward over the next few weeks.
Oh, I hope so too. I'll definitely. But that defense is just lights out. That defense is the real deal. While people say, "Oh, they only played Atlanta and they played, whoever." I mean, and they played Denver. Come on, you can tell when a great defense is a great defense. That is a great defense. I'm not care who they're playing against. And people say, I listen to a lot of sports talk radio, and people say, well, they can't keep on winning this way. And I said, well, but why can't they? Why? There's more than one. It's football. There's more than one way to win a football game. Yeah, you can win a football game by a shootout. You can win a football game by outscoring the other team in the 30s or whatever, in the 40s. You can also neutralize a strong opposing offense by keeping the ball. Running for first downs, doing play action, picking up first downs. They've already got a field goal kicker who could probably hit from like 80. You start to wonder with Jeff Reed. So as far as the Steelers go, I think if they're going to have a big year, you're going to see a lot of games very similar to these first two.
And they have not turned the ball over yet, have they? No turnovers for the Steelers. That's good. Obviously, when you're not putting up many points, last thing you want to do is give the other team a short field with a turnover, and they have not done that yet. So
I have to document this before we end the segment, but being a Justin Fields fan, that play where he rolled out and threw that pass to Pickens that got called back because of holding, that might have been one of the prettiest passes I've seen in my life.
Yeah, that was a nice play. I totally agree with you there. One other point I'd like to make before we switch topics here, the kicking games. It used to be, again, I'm showing my age, but when I was a kid watching football, the only times teams would even try a 50-yard field goal would be if it was at the end of the half with nothing to lose, or at the end of a game with nothing to lose. Okay, we're down by 2, we're down by 3, 2 seconds to go, whatever, we have to try this. Now, 50-plus field goals are a regular, extremely commonplace thing. Here's a stat that blew my mind. First 2 weeks of this season, NFL place kickers from beyond 50, 33 of 37. That's crazy. 33 out of 37.
Speaking of kickers, do you see Justin Tucker has proven he's human? I think he's only like 3 of 6, 3 of 7. I mean, this is a guy
I have
who
him in fantasy, so of course it sucked.
He's only made, I think it's half, maybe even less than half of his field goal attempts so far. And this is a guy that it was literally like automatic.
Well, he's struggling from beyond 50, and he struggled from beyond 50 last year, and he's off to that same start this year. He's not Mr. Automatic from beyond 50 anymore. That's for sure.
Chinks in the armor.
Yeah. Well, plus let's face it, he's getting a little old. He's been playing for a while.
John is old enough to remember barefoot kickers.
I remember barefoot kickers.
Of course, I remember barefoot kickers. Absolutely. You have something against that?
Pat Leahy.
I remember the half foot Tom Dempsey.
Yeah. Just
I remember
barefoot
straight on kickers. Mark Mosley.
Mark
straight
Mosley.
on.
Yep. Kurt Knight.
Kurt Knight.
Yeah. Yep.
I had no idea where Derek was going with that when he said that. Derek is innocent.
Now it is time for Stump Derek.
Stump Derek.
I am 1-3. John, here's how we do this. He asks a
Okay.
question, and I give my answer after the picks. I get a chance to think about it. But, Brendan, stage is yours.
All right, so you know who is the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, the team that the Steelers play this upcoming week, in Jim Harbaugh? I'm not a fan, but
Of
Pittsburgh.
course, you're not a fan.
Pittsburgh beat Harbaugh and the Indianapolis Colts in the 1995 AFC Championship game thanks to a Hail Mary attempt batted away by this player, Derek.
Okay.
And Jim Harbaugh was the quarterback of that game.
Yep.
Yes, he was the quarterback. We go through our picks, and then I give my answer.
Okay. Okay, so you're going to wait to give your answer.
Yeah, I get a
got
little
you.
bit of time to
Right.
think about it.
I got you.
It's pick time. We have 11 games on the docket this week, and the first 5 of these we're going to give a little bit of analysis before we actually pick a final score. Jake is not with us today. He's dealing with some family issues out in the eastern part of the state, but I do have his picks with me. So, Brendan, we're going to start with Westinghouse at Butler. What are your thoughts on the matchup for the Golden Tornado?
So confidence is key. The Bulldogs have beaten their last 3 opponents by an average of 61 points, which is insane. Those 3 wins have also been shutouts, and meanwhile, Butler is picking itself up off the mat after last week's rough loss, throwing 5 interceptions. Wrote about Mark Clemson, and he went for 19 yards and 11 carries, so I might have jinxed him a little bit there. But I'm going to go with Westinghouse to win this game, 27-14.
John.
Actually, for the first time in a long time, I think Butler's got some athletes who can stay with Westinghouse. Last couple of times they played them, I've covered those games, and Westinghouse speed just too much for Butler. But now you got 2 good running backs. Butler's got 2 really quality receivers. The big question is, can that offensive line for Butler, which has been playing pretty well. Obviously, I didn't know how they played last week. I wasn't at that game, but I think Butler will stay in this game. But Westinghouse still just too much talent. They're an extremely talented program there, and I've got to go with Westinghouse. My score is going to be 34-21.
Okay, Jake is taking Westinghouse 38-14. Westinghouse is actually a single A team this year, but they are a very, very good one. They're actually currently ranked first in the state, first in the entire state of PA amongst 1A teams. They returned 14 combined starters on offense and defense from a team whose only loss last year came in the state championship game to Southern Columbia, and they beat Butler at Art Bernardi Stadium last year 36-7. I think that's just a little bit too much of a gap to try to close. I think this one's going to be closer, but I'm picking the Bulldogs 28-13. All right, is this the game you're going to? What game? Oh, you're going to Newcastle.
Yep.
That's right. We got the next game up here is Moniteau at Mars. It will be staffed. Somebody for us will be there.
I think
Will Pitts, okay. The Planets trying to snap a 3-game losing streak, but they got a tough test against the Spartans. I covered the Spartans last week against Knock. Very good team. Brendan, how do you see this one going?
Mars has certainly cooled off since returning from Orlando. We were really hot on them that first week. Kind of thought they were unstoppable, and it's been proven that they can be, being that they've lost their last 3. So the Planets did give Alquipa a worthwhile fight last week. They were in the game at halftime, actually ran off the field very excited, came back on, and Alquipa kind of put it away quickly. But quarterback situation is murky for Mars with Luke Goodworth leaving the game after halftime with, I think, a shoulder injury. So I'm going to go with Montour to win this one, 34-20.
John?
Yeah, Maury's just too banged up right now, especially at the QB position. Goodworth, no, I don't know. Is the other quarterback, can he throw the ball? Or is he still
Kasparovich?
Kasparovich, can he?
He was their starting quarterback 2 years ago.
Right.
But then he
I'm going to
hurt
find
his
that out
shoulder
today.
last year, so-
Going down there to ask them after this interview to write
yeah?
a feature on him. So there will be some more insight on that in future Butler Eagle this week.
Yeah, if Marge was healthy, I'd feel a lot better about it. But right now, I got to go with Montour. I think Marge's defense will hold it down a little bit, but I'm going to go 27 to 13. Montour.
Jake is also picking Montour by a final of 28-17. And I can tell you this, Trey Hopper, the quarterback from Montour, I don't know if you saw my story from last week, against Knock, he threw for 435 yards,
Yeah, I saw that.
4 touchdowns on 13 completions. And Mars's defense has given up a lot of yards this year and quite a few points. So and that plus the fact that Luke Goodworth is out, even if Kasparovich, Eric, the player, is capable of getting the passing game going, you're taking him out of the running game too because he was their running back up till now. So I think it's a tough road to hoe for the Planets this week. Just too tough of a test. I'm picking the Spartans to win 30-16. Now we go to Moon at Seneca Valley. Seneca Valley coming off their first win of the season last week. They beat Norwin on the road. Now they return home to face the Tigers. Brendan, is it 2 in a row for the Raiders?
Like you said, both teams are coming off wins. The Tigers responded after going down early last week. I saw on Twitter that one of their defensive backs is Darrell Reeves' son, I think. So I figured I'd put that out there. And I think that Moon will get off to a better start this time. Moon wins 20-13.
You're going with the Raiders, John.
I think I am. I think Seneca found its stride a little bit last week, and I think they will handle Moon. A close game at home. I'm going to go 21-17, Seneca.
Jake is picking Moon to beat Seneca 28-17. I was not at Seneca Valley's game last week, but they did rush for it as a team for 200 yards, over 200 yards, as a matter of fact, in the win over Norwin. But I think Moon's defense poses a much stiffer challenge, and I think the Tigers come into next year and beat the Raiders 22-13. All right, this is a very interesting game. I think this could end up being the game of the week. We got Karn City coming off their first loss of the season against Du Bois, going to Punxsutawney. The Gremlins get back on track, Brendan.
I do think so. The Chucks wins have been over 3 teams that are combined 2-8 to this point, so that might be a little bit of fool's gold there with their record. I think Karn City wins here 20-13.
Are you Casey happy, John?
Well, like I said, I covered Coin City last week. Joe Sherwin referred to Cole Johnson's efforts in the game as a coming out party for him. The sophomore quarterback was outstanding in that game. Threw for 2 touchdowns, ran for 2 touchdowns, ran for over 100 yards, threw for about 160 yards. When you've got a quarterback who can that versatile with a team that can run the ball like Corn City, they're going to be too much for Punxsy. I'm going to go with KC 35-21.
Let's see what Jake's picking here. He is taking Karn City in a close one, 30-28. Yeah, I mean, you look at what Karn City's able to do rushing the football. If you add a consistent passing game in with that, with Cole Johnson, who can also run the ball. I think he scored a rushing touchdown last week as well, too.
Yeah.
Watch out if that Karn City offense can become consistently balanced. I think this is going to be a really good game. I like both teams. I think they're both really good on offense, but I think Karn City pulls this one out 32-29, and I'm calling it the game of the week out in Punxsutawney.
All
right. I stuck this game on there just because Union AC Valley has been playing so well. They've won 3 straight, and they're going up to McKean County to play a Port Allegheny team that's undefeated. Brendan, is it going to be a good night for the Falconites? It's a very stiff test, that's for sure.
I don't think it'll be a good night. Port Allegheny is scoring at a crazy clip. The Gators have scored 73, 66, and 47 in the past 3 weeks, which looks like basketball scores. So I don't think the Falconites will be able to keep pace. Port Allegheny 35, Union AC 13.
Wow. Jeez.
John?
Yeah, Union AC Valley, they kind of do this every year. They'll win a few games in a row. They'll stub their toe once or twice during the season. This is going to be one. Unfortunately, this is going to be one of those games where they stub their toe. Too much to go up there or expect to win on the road. So I'm going with Port Allegheny I'll go 21-14.
Jake is taking Port Allegheny 48-28. Now, 48-28 Gators. Port's Aiden Bliss is averaging nearly 230 yards per game on the ground. 2 weeks ago, you know how good Red Bank is, right? Just a few years ago, they played for a state championship. Last year, they won District 9. Well, 2 weeks ago, the Gators humbled defending District 9 Class A champ Red Bank Valley by a final of 66-38. But not so fast, my friend.
Uh-oh.
The Falcon Knights have won 3 straight and are clicking on offense and defense. I think maybe Port's a little content with where they are right now. They're not looking for the strongest test from Union AC Valley, and I think Falcon Knights go up there. I'm picking the upset. I'm picking the Falcon Knights 22-20. Dan Reed's probably like, I want everybody to pick against us.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dan, I'm picking your team this week. I'm picking you to win a very close game by 2 points. Now, the rest of these games are going to be just a straight pick, no analysis.
Okay.
A team I covered last week, Knock, lost them on tour. Now, Brendan gets them this week. They're going to Newcastle. What are your thoughts?
I know you said no analysis, but last year I went up to Newcastle.
So he's got to analyze.
Listen, no, last year I went up to Newcastle. John probably remembers week 2 when they played Mars, and I expected Newcastle, traditionally good program, to be good. That game is terrible. They're 3-0 this year, so they've kind of turned it around.
Newcastle is.
Yeah, I think Knock wins this one on the road in a tough environment, 27-21.
Johnny.
I agree. I think Knock is better than what they've shown so far. I think they're going to. I like Tim Burtson. I like their coach a lot. He'll get things straightened out. Knock big road win this week, 28-20 Knights.
Jake is taking Newcastle to win 40-17, and I am taking Newcastle to win 30-24. Another, I got to mention this. Colt Sprankle. Did you see my story from last week? He actually left the game with an injury. But who do the Knights have as their backup quarterback? The all-time leading passer, Cody Mullins. So I don't know who's starting this week. I think whoever starts, it's going to be a good game. But I got the Red Hurricane winning 30-24. All right, the game I'll be at on Friday, Burrell at Freeport. Brendan.
Freeport 26-6.
John.
Oh, man. I don't know. What is Burrell's record? I plead ignorance.
They had 0-4.
0-4? Okay. Freeport rolls them. 35-12, Freeport.
Very similar score to Jake. He's picking Freeport to win 34-13. And I will be there eating the food in the press box. And I think I will also see a Freeport win. I'm picking them to beat the Bucks 42-8. All right, here's another game that our team is obviously the heavily favored team here. North Catholic going down to a McGuffey team that's lost 4 straight games to open the season. Brendan, you like the Trojans?
North Catholic 35-14.
John.
North Catholic as well. I'm going to go 42-17.
Jake is picking North Catholic 33-7, and I am taking North Catholic 41-7. Sarah Catholic coming to Herman on Saturday afternoon for a 12:30 kickoff against Summit Academy Knights. Does Summit pick up their second win here, Brendan?
They do not. Sarah Catholic wins 35-20.
John.
Yeah, I think Sarah Catholic also wins. I'm going to go 33-12.
Jake is taking Sarah Catholic 28-20 in a close game. I got a little bit more of a blowout than that. 36-14. I'm taking Sarah to beat Summit. Sharpsville at Slippery Rock. Does Slippery Rock get their second win of the season?
Slippery Rock kind of got run off the field by Grove City this past week. Their running back had a lot of yardage. Grove City's did. So 28-14 Sharpsville.
John.
Yeah, Slippery Rock, they're just too young. Very, very young team. This year they're taking their lumps. I'm going to go with Sharpsville 38-20.
Jake is taking Sharpsville to win 41-7. I think the Blue Devils are going to win, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than that. I got Sharpsville beating Slippery Rock 27-20. All right, and here's the game that we're hoping is played. I'm going to check with Bob Rotman later in the week to make sure that Moniteau is indeed going to St. Mary's on Friday after forfeiting last week's game against Central Clarion. If the game is played, Brendan, how do you see this one turning out?
Not too great. St. Mary's 35, Moniteau 0.
Oh, shut up.
John?
Also go with St. Mary's, but I'm going to have Moniteau scoring. I'm going to go St. Mary's 31, Moniteau 8.
Jake is taking St. Mary's 44-7, and I am taking the Dutch to beat Moniteau 33-12.
This is a difference between 2 and 3 and 1 and 4, Derek.
Oh, the trivia?
Oh, Randy Fuller. That play was it came on probably one of the 3 greatest days in the first 18 years of my life. So, the first day was being born. And then I kissed a girl in 2nd grade. That's probably number 2.
Your first kiss was in 2nd grade?
Yeah, and everybody laughed at me because
No
I was
way.
dumb enough to do it in front of the whole class. Yes.
Mine was 7th grade.
Wow.
How
That's
about
a
you,
big
John?
there. See that?
You still waiting for your first kiss?
Still waiting for it. No, but I can comment on that play.
John was just outside of the end zone on that play.
I was. I used to cover the Steelers back then, and I'm on the field, obviously waiting to go into the locker room because it's the final seconds. And I'm standing down by the end zone because you knew they're going to throw a Hail Mary. What else could they do in that situation? I watched the ball in the air, and it seemed like time just froze. I mean, the stadium got quiet. The ball was seemed like it was a mile high in the air. It's coming down, coming down, coming down. It's been knocked around a few times. Patrick Bailey of the Colts is literally laying on his back. The ball lands on his belly and is just sitting on his belly. He didn't know the ball was on his belly because all he had to do was this. All he had to do was reach, put his hand there, and the Colts would have won. But he didn't even know it was. He moved, the ball rolled off his belly, and the game was over. It was bizarre.
Remind our listeners, because the question was about 10 minutes ago, who is Randy Fuller?
Randy Fuller is the player that batted away Indianapolis Colts quarterback Jim Harbaugh's Hail Mary pass in the 1995 AFC Championship game. So if I go back and look at the highlights, I'll see you in the end zone.
You might, depending what angle the camera has.
We're gonna log on to you.
Thank you, Randy Fuller. That was the first Super Bowl I remember the Steelers playing in. They won that game to get to the Super Bowl against the Cowboys because I don't remember the last 2 of the 70s. I was still in diapers. So I was in diapers.
Neil O'Donnell ruined it for you.
Ugh. Moving on. You guys ready for the last discussion topic,
Sure.
or are you going to play around on your computer?
I want to see if I can see John in the end zone here.
Great moment in my life, I'm telling you. And then 2 weeks later, Neil O'Donnell. Anyway, the last discussion topic for this week is we have 5 teams in our coverage area, football teams, with 1 win. I'm going to run them down here for you. Seneca Valley, Mars, Knox, Slippery Rock, and Summit Academy each have 1 win. Now, Mars and Slippery Rock are both 1-3. All those other teams are 1-2. Of these teams, which one in your mind has the best chance to make the playoffs? We're going to start with Brendan.
Well, you just mentioned that Knock, even if their starting quarterback is out, they have a very capable quarterback right behind center that knows the entire playbook in and out. He mentioned that to me when I talked to him in the preseason. Was he knew what route every receiver's running. Like, the playbook is secondhand to him. So I think that Knock will figure it out starting this week when I go down there with my pick. I think that Knock will kind of gain some steam as we go on. Mars is at the point where it's like they've lost 3 straight. I think they're another team that could do it. It's just going to be a matter of whether they kind of pick up like I think Knock can.
John, you care to chime in on this one?
Yeah, much as I hate to do it, I have to agree with Brendan on this one. Knox got a lot of talent. They are way too much talent to be sitting there at 1-2. I think they'll right themselves and make the playoffs.
I'm going to actually go with Seneca Valley here. Seneca Valley. Their 1 win, as I mentioned, they're 1-2 now. Their 1 win was a conference win last week against Norwin, so they've already taken a step toward making the playoffs. Now they still have North Allegheny and Central Catholic on their schedule.
Yeah, 6A is really tough.
They do, but they still have a winless Mount Lebanon team,
Yeah.
a Hempfield team with 1 win,
Yeah.
and who am I missing? A 1-win Cannon Mac team. Right. Now, if they win 2 out of those 3,
they'll be in.
coupled with the win they already have over Norwin,
Yeah.
they would finish no worse than 3-3 in the conference. They take the top 4. I think that would be enough. Now, once you get to the playoffs, how long are you going to last?
Sure.
But I think just because their 1 win so far is a conference win, they have 3 games left on their schedule that I think are going to be very winnable. I'm actually taking Seneca Valley, and I would not have said that last week. I picked them to lose to Norwin, but they went down to Norwin and spanked the Knights 26-6. So I'm taking Seneca Valley to make the playoffs. Ron Butchley, here we go.
All right.
John, being editor, is
Go Raiders.
Is spanked a word I can use for a blowout next time I write? Do you think that would be acceptable by
Spanked?
Jake standards?
I wouldn't use it. Jake may not have a problem with it. I don't know. I wouldn't use it.
Yeah, I don't think I'd use that terminology for a blowout. I like Derek's color.
There's just
though.
kind
I
of
enjoy
words.
it.
It's just kind of phrases used like rolled past, or there's other ways to describe that stuff without taking a shot.
Obliterated.
Without like taking a shot at a team.
Wait, what? I don't know. Are you?
Yes. Well, you
Well,
taped the closing, right? So
yeah. I mean, you guys can. Do you want to thank him since he stayed the whole time? Do that real
yes, we
quick,
do.
and then.
Where's
and
the
then-
brownies at, John?
I'm waiting for my paycheck.
All right. That's
Same
good.
here.
That's going to do it for this episode of Alter Eagles Eye on Sports, John. We want to appreciate you coming in, and thank you for spending some time with us. We know there's
glad
other
to do
ways
it.
you could be spending your time with the wife at home and the golf course calling your name.
Well, she's actually at an eye appointment right now, so
Oh,
I have to go pick her up right when I leave here. So.
I was gonna make a joke about John throwing his back out, but I didn't like last week, so I'm not gonna do
Hey,
that.
that was a painful thing with that. happened.
Yeah, it's not fun.
John, we wish you well. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Derek. It was a pleasure joining you guys.
Alter Eagles Eye on Sports podcast would like to thank our sponsors: Butler County Chamber of Commerce, R.W. McDonald & Sons Incorporated, Robert Stevens Jewelers, Sprankles Neighborhood Market. We encourage you to subscribe to the Butler Eagle YouTube channel and Apple or Spotify podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Alter Eagle Podcast and at Butler Eagle News. Goodbye.